All right, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the iCoach VIP members. This time, I have a special guest, another one of these coaches that I keep bringing to y'all from this crazy mastermind of ours that I keep talking about, Miss Christy. What is going on?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Happy Friday to you on this end.
Yeah, you too.
What's the temperature like where you're at?
I'm in about an hour north of Seattle, and it's like 50s today, so it's not too bad. Yeah, it's not too cold, but I have a feeling like it'll be pretty cold just right around the corner.
Yeah, pretty soon. Yeah, we got like a brief moment of it being like 30 degrees out here, and everybody freaked out. But now it's like back to like 70. So.
Oh my God, yeah. No, it won't be 70 here for a while.
Yeah, y'all are in for a much more in-depth winter than what we typically get.
Yeah, for sure.
How much snow do y'all normally get on average?
Where I live, it's really kind of mild, but the mountains are super close by. So if you want snow, like if I wanted snow today, it wouldn't be hard to go find it. You just climb a mountain and there would be snow. So it doesn't snow here. Like it's not like Montana, even though we're like that far north, it's not like the whole winter is snowed in or something. We get like a couple of big snowstorms and that's all. But the mountains are close. And I think it's just because we're so close to so much water. It's kind of like a rainforest here. So it just doesn't snow tons, but it's cold. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I always see Cody's like morning walks. Do y'all live pretty close to each other?
About an hour and a half.
Or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, awesome. So I want to dive into obviously your story, your transformation. We'll tag everything here in the bottom, but like you have an amazing transformation and now you're paying it forward and building a company and helping all of these people to do the same. So give us a little bit of background on just kind of you and your story and everything that you've gone through up to this point.
Sure. Well, growing up, I loved sports. I mean, I was a soccer player. I played like all the time I was very much a tomboy. And so I always played soccer, always played softball, was out with the boys, playing football if you gave me an option. So I never really had a weight problem growing up. But I had a single mom and we were certainly on a budget. And so I never really learned to eat healthy. We definitely were like hamburger helper and cereal. And, I ate like mountains of fruit snacks and who knows what I ate. But I mean, I don't think I had like really fresh like spinach until I was like in college. I'd never had that. Like vegetables were out of a can. When I wanted a snack, it was something from a vending machine. So I grew up eating like kind of processed nonsense. But I didn't really struggle with my weight because I think I was so active. And then when I actually went into the Navy. I went to the Naval Academy, and my freshman year, I was playing sports and ended up being misdiagnosed with an ACL tear, but my ACL wasn't torn. It was just unstable, but my whole body's unstable, turns out. Like I just kind of have bendy joints that go in every direction. But I was 18 and active duty, so I had that knee surgery. And then in the years to follow, so if you kind of fast forward through my time in the Navy, I ended up having 9 more knee surgeries. So 4 reconstructive surgeries on my left knee. And so 4 ACL reconstructions just on the left knee. Ultimately just from that one misdiagnosis. So, fast forward 7 years, I got married. I had my first baby, and then I had my second baby. And I was 50 pounds overweight. I didn't lose the weight because I didn't know how to eat. And because my knee was pretty much, a mess after all those surgeries, I couldn't do any of the like sports that I loved. I couldn't exercise. And so I was just stuck. And so I remember, my oldest was probably 4 and my youngest was 2 at the time. And I just kind of was like, well, I guess this is what happens when you have kids and you get old. Like, and I mean, I think I was in my like late 20s at that point. I was like, I guess I'm always going to be 40 pounds overweight and wear clothes that, mom clothes that I don't like, and be forced to like drag myself to the gym and try. And I think like at that point in my life, I mean, I was really happy with my kids and I was happy with my career and my husband, but I was like really dissatisfied with my body. Like I didn't feel good. I didn't feel like an athlete like I had always been. I didn't know how to eat. And I was pretty confused because everything that I tried, like everything that was marketed on TV, everything that you would hear, or like books that were available, I would try those and then I would fail. And then I felt like, well, there must be something wrong with me. Like I just don't have the discipline to do this. So, I mean, I had done Weight Watchers like 3 or 4 times. I bought an elliptical machine and put it in my house and like tried to use it. And I, you give up after a while. I bought Brazilian butt lift. I mean, I did all the things. Like I tried, diet shakes. I did, anything that you can think of, it just didn't work. I would lose the same 5 pounds and gain it back. And then ultimately I just felt bad. So I was really frustrated at that point in my life. And funny enough, my husband left on deployment and he just recently left again on deployment. So he's gone right now. But I had this idea that, okay, well, while he's gone, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get in shape. And so I ended up moving to Maryland, which is where I'm from. And what really changed everything for me was I met a coach. And he was just a guy I met at World Gym. Like he was just a trainer. But he changed it all for me. Like he didn't baby me. He treated me like an athlete. He had me lift heavy weights. He taught me how to eat more food. He said I wasn't eating enough. He told me about eating protein and drinking water and saving, going out to eat for occasions, and about, where do you get healthy carbs? And I mean, he didn't have any magical formula. He just taught me about nutrition and about working out. And through his, his coaching, I lost 40 pounds. And over the course of that year, I also discovered CrossFit and sort of like realized that he changed my life in a way that, it didn't matter like what my job was. It didn't matter what my education was or my age. He took me from a place of feeling really dissatisfied every single day to feeling like alive and feeling like motivated and capable of doing things. And so that's when I realized like I wanted to do that for other people. And so I got certified as a personal trainer and started doing personal training, and then got certified as a nutrition coach and started doing that. And then, through CrossFit, ended up coaching CrossFit, quite a bit. And along that journey, I kept learning, because even once you have a label as a personal trainer or nutrition coach or whatever, it doesn't mean you know everything. So like ultimately still in through all that time, that's probably been 4 years now that I've been doing this, but like I keep learning more and more. And so there were definitely some missteps along the way, and things where, like you're like, well, this seems like a great path. Like for example, like about 3.5 years ago when I was really training hard in CrossFit, I got caught up with like trying a template. And I was like, this is going to be the structure that I need for my nutrition to fuel my training. And I was doing a template that had me cut and then cut and then cut. And I mean, I was doing like competitor level CrossFit training, like 2 or 3 hours a day of training and eating like, 1,400 calories.
Real quick on that, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah,
because this happens to a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. So on that track, like when you started following the template, like obviously at some point you probably started not feeling the greatest, right? Mm-hmm. But you continued on with the template after that, I'm assuming?
So what was funny is, so if you say like, okay, I lost 40 pounds by learning the basics, right? And then I was like in this evolution of learning things. The first part of that evolution for me was learning about food quality. So I did a paleo challenge, and that like blew my mind, right? Because I was like, wow, turns out like I have some food intolerances. Nobody ever told me about this. And now I feel better. So I'd ultimately done CrossFit, on a paleo diet for a year. And I was like, well, this is weird. Like I should look different, at this point. I should be like leaning out or having more energy, maybe something's missing. And so then that's sort of what drew me to the template, was they were saying like, you can't eat paleo, you have to eat for your training. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep some of the paleo's, principles of like the foods that work for me, but now I'm going to apply this template to it. It's going to be like double awesome, because I'm going to eat whole foods and I'm going to do this template. But what happened is that I was expecting that as I would progress through the cuts of the template, that I would lean out. Like that was kind of my goal, is I wanted to go from looking like average girl CrossFitter to looking like CrossFit Games girl, and also perform better than I ever had. So I had this like misconception that that's what I was going to do. But ultimately, as I was cutting, nothing was happening. I wasn't getting leaner. My performance wasn't getting better. I was super grumpy and like deprived. And it was also very restrictive for me. Like I felt like, you know, I had like 30 grams of fat for the day or something. And you can't eat very much like that. So anyways, I was just at a certain point after doing it, probably for 3 or 4 months, it just wasn't working.
Did you feel bad for 3 to 4 months, or like 3 months before you actually decided to change? Like, did you?
Yeah, I don't think I knew I felt bad.
Okay.
I thought that, again, like, I feel like it's still that mindset of like, there's something wrong with me.
Sure.
And so it always comes back for me. And I think it comes back to a lot of people when you're doing something and it's not working, you're like, well, there's something wrong with me. Like it should be working. I didn't question that. Like I needed more calories. And so it wasn't until actually I heard Jason Phillips on a podcast that I was like, it was the Barbell Shrugged podcast. And he was talking about, essentially that people have like overtaxed their system and underfed their system and tried to eat, way too few calories for what they're trying to do. That I was like, wait a minute, that sounds like me. And he started talking about like how people were never hungry. And I was like, that sounds like me. And so ultimately I reached out to him, and then he helped me basically learn about applying macros to my goals, which, I hadn't learned that really yet, because even though I had done personal training cert, I had done nutrition certs, I had done all that other stuff, no one had ever told me how to do that, how to take, macros and then apply them to what I was doing. So ultimately he gave me more food. He just fed me more, and I leaned out, and my performance got like way better. I started having much more fun in the gym, and ultimately I was eating like 600 more calories a day. So that's kind of, go ahead.
So on that, I mean, so a coach comes, or you start working with a coach, and you're over here, right? You want to like look better, you want to perform better. So for one of those categories, it probably makes sense to eat more, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, what was the psychological effect of him like you coming to him with those goals and then him telling you that you need to eat more? Like, was there any like barrier of like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about? Like there's no way that I should eat more food and be able to like change my body comp?
It was definitely counter to everything that I had heard before.
So what was the mindset shift for you to make you like believe that or try?
I was just sick of, I figured the other thing didn't work. I mean, I figured like I had tried to go really low calorie and that didn't work. And so, let's try this. And so I kind of just went and trusted it blindly, because I was just like, well, it's certainly the template didn't work. And even though I got a tremendous amount of benefit out of paleo and learning about food quality, I didn't feel like I was fueling correctly for what I was trying to do, which I was never going to be like some kind of CrossFit Games athlete or something. I had this, I really loved competing in CrossFit, like sort of like recreational plus, like I was good enough to have a lot of fun competing, but I was never going to go to the games. But it was really important to me to like feel good and to get better and to make PRs and to like progress. And so when I wasn't doing that, it felt really frustrating. And so I knew I wasn't doing that when I was eating paleo, because I wasn't getting enough of the right kinds of fuel. And then the template kind of starved me. And so it was like, well, what else is there to try? And I hadn't heard of, and also Jason's approach was, he kind of like went against, that if it fits your macros, like eat just donuts and gummy bears, to change your body. He openly said that wasn't his approach. And so that's why I was more open to it.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically realized that like you had success with paleo, which was heavy emphasis on food quality.
Mm-hmm.
To the other end of the spectrum with a template, which was pretty much focused on food quantity, that put you in a bad spot. And then we ultimately realized that food quality and food quantity are necessary to achieve the goals that you wanted.
Yeah.
So did you I'm always really curious about like the intro phase of working with a coach. So like go back to that first trainer, for example. Like what did that first like month look like for y'all? Like what was step one for y'all? Like he did y'all's assessment, maybe if he even did, I don't know. But what was like the first thing that he was like, you know what, like we really need to start improving this?
You know what was funny about him, and his name's Dante Finney. If anybody wants to follow him, look him up. His mixed martial fitness. He lives in Florida now. But like, in his approach, because he was a personal trainer. So, I was going to him 2 or 3 times a week for like, almost like he did like mini sessions with 5 or 6 people at a time. And for me, it was that he was honest. Like I really needed somebody to be honest with me and not baby me. And so, that can be startling when you're first starting with a coach, because you basically like had all these people kind of like in your life probably gloss around the edges of, what you want to hear or what they think, or they don't want to hurt your feelings or whatever. And then you hire a coach, and then hopefully they have some tact, but they should be honest with you. They should be like telling you like, hey, like, guess what? If you drink alcohol 4 times a week, you're not going to lose weight. And like, you need that kind of honesty. So that was what I remember, was like, all of a sudden he was like, nope, you're going to have to lift some heavy weights. Like, you want to change your body? We're going to learn how to deadlift, And I was like, what? Like, cause that wasn't what you heard. Like that was, that was the opposite of Brazilian butt lift, right? Like that was like, do these videos, like, and there's nothing wrong with those videos. It's just, it didn't teach me what I needed. So that's what that's what I remember, is that honesty, and that like, his intention was to help me. And so that honesty came from a place of like sincerely wanting to help me be better. And I think those two things have to be together. It can't just be like mean honesty.
Yeah. No, I mean, I kind of coined the phrase. Well, I don't know if I coined it, but it's one thing we say, like being like priding ourselves on as a coach as being like an empathetic problem.
Yeah.
Like you have to empathize with them, but you also have to help them overcome their struggles and overcome whatever problem it is they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So obviously y'all were doing more, I mean, y'all probably didn't even talk a lot about nutrition maybe like in that first month. It was more of like a training basis.
Mm-hmm. It just came up in the context of training,
So then I just started working with a personal trainer. Like you're probably expecting to like lose weight. So like, did you lose weight the first month?
I don't remember. I know that my body changed. I mean, he did a body composition assessment, which again was the first time anybody had ever talked to me about body composition. Because up until that point, it had always been Weight Watchers. I only knew about the scale.
Right.
So that was really important, because that was the first time someone said like, hey, the scale might not change, but your body's changing. But if you want to know, honestly, how long did it take me to lose 40 pounds? 35 pounds? It took 9 months. It took 9 to 12 months to lose that weight. And so it was not like, 1 month went by and 10 pounds was gone. And it was 9 months of like consistency.
So talk to me a little bit about like along that 9-month frame,
Mm-hmm.
Knowing you have kids, knowing you had a husband away and all these things, like how many times did you have to overcome the demons, like I like to call them, coming up with those negative thoughts?
It's hard. I mean, there was a lot of times where I was like, I would get babysitters just so I could go to, the boot camp class, and I know that a lot of moms do that. But that's hard to do over and over and over and over again. My mom would help out. She'd watch the kids, but even that, you're asking a favor, right? Like, will you watch, we watch the boys so I can go work out again. I'm going to go to the grocery store. Like, you have to do all these things that are sort of a little bit harder than just going the easy route. And also with my husband gone, there were like lots of social occasions where it would have just been easier to chill with friends and do whatever. But I had this like little rule for myself that I was going to have like, 1 go out to eat per week, where I could just enjoy it and do whatever. But the rest of the time I was going to, eat clean is what I called it, and I would just, eat stuff that I prepared at home. And so it really wasn't magic that year. It was just consistency. It was like, okay, like keep going to boot camp class, keep, eating good food over and over again. And I was learning. So it's not like I knew it perfectly. I didn't have like somebody didn't write me a meal plan or give me all the answers. But I did have a coach, and that was helpful because then when I was confused, I would just ask him like, hey, like I didn't lose weight. Like what's going on? Or, hey, like, I don't know where to get protein. And he would tell me. So I wasn't like totally figuring out on my own, but there were demons. Like, and I think even now, like my husband's gone right now, like it's hard because you're like, oh, well, wouldn't it be nice to just have a glass of wine? Like the kids like make you bananas. Like my kids are 9 and 7 now. And it's like, you can fall into this sort of like culture of comfort, like with food and then also with alcohol. And, as a nutrition coach now, like it's clear to me because I've seen it over and over again that like, if you want to feel good in your body and ultimately like your appearance, and like how you feel in your clothes, then you have to be consistent, like repeatedly doing the good choices. And so that's what's hard, right? Like when family stuff gets in the way and stuff like that, so it's still hard. It's still a thing that I think about. It's something that I, work with my clients on. It's just like, how do you establish really sound daily habits, so that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel every day, because it is stressful. It is stressful with kids. And, if you're working or if you have, whatever's in your family life, there's going to be a million reasons why, whatever it is, even if you don't have kids, you might just have a hard job, or like you might work 3 jobs. Like those are all good reasons why you can't do it. You kind of got to figure it out.
So one thing I want to touch on, I thought it was really interesting because I run into this a lot, is did you feel, I mean, I know you talked about feeling bad in terms of like asking somebody to come watch your kids.
Yeah.
But like, did it at any moment or at any time, did you feel like guilty about prioritizing yourself versus like, because for a lot of moms out there, like it's almost like they feel guilty to go, to prioritize that time so they can go to the gym or to prioritize their own goals because they feel like everything is invested in their children and they almost like lose their self. Mm-hmm. So was that a struggle for you, like just kind of getting into your head? Like how did you start prioritizing yourself? That's the question that I'm kind of coming up with.
It is hard and it's still hard. I think women especially, and I know men too, but like women especially, it's not just your kids. I think most of the women that I work with prioritize everything else in their life above themselves. So it's their kids, it's their spouse, it's their job, it's the house, it's the laundry, it's the, whatever it is, it's all more important than taking care of themselves. And so you kind of have to start taking back little bites at a time. So I don't know if I did it cognizantly that year or if I just was so sick of not, feeling good that once I started feeling better, once I started building momentum, it became easier to kind of take that back. But ultimately, I still struggle with that. Like, I think like there's plenty of times, I mean, I did a weightlifting meet because I compete in weightlifting now. And it was 3 weeks ago and I missed my son's football game. And like inside, I felt like a huge jerk, like, cause I had gone to my weightlifting meet and I missed his football game. But then I was like telling myself, well, you can play sports too, like as an adult and as a mom. And like, it's good for him to see you do that. And you go to most of his games. But like, this is important to you. You worked hard for this goal and it's a thing. But that felt hard for me. So it still does. And there's plenty of times where I'm like, in the evenings, the kids get home and after I finish my work day, I'm like, well, I'm going to go get my workout in. And I feel like I'm neglecting them or something. But if I don't do it, then I know what'll happen. If I don't go to the grocery store or if I don't cook the food that we need or I don't do my workouts, I know what will happen because I've been there before. And so I don't want to be in that place. So it's really important for me to like create that structure that I still take care of myself. A lot of that too for, people is sleep. Like they end up doing everything but sleep, because, you know, they're working extra hard for their job or their kids or whatever, and then they don't sleep. But like, that's one of the most important things you can do to take care of yourself, is define that, like, I'm going to be in bed by 10 o'clock because I need it. And that's how I think about it. I just create systems where, like, okay, this is my workout time, and I'm not trying to like create a new one every day, but this is my time and I do it, and it's part of the routine. And so if I feel bad, I just do it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think there's a lot of really good points there, but one is, so when you're almost like going through this process of like where you're at now, right? And then thinking back where you were 5 years ago. Like you just said right now, you said, I know that I have to do these things because I never want to go back to that again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say, for instance, like everything was good and like you're in a good spot. And then let's say like what do you think, like, assuming you didn't have the willpower that you have now and the knowledge you have now, and you kind of like overcame it in a sense up to this point, like, but going back to 5 years ago, like, what do you think, if you would have gotten to some type of routine for a month or whatever, like, what would be the first thing that would be like the trigger to throw you off course for you?
To get me off course or to get me back on?
So like, say for instance, you just started the paleo diet and and then something happened and it threw you off of the routine and you had to pick back up, and you picked back up again with some other diet. So what was the trigger that always made you fall off? Was there the same one, or it's different, or?
Probably two things. One would be the scale. I think when you're really reliant on the scale changing, that is like one of the fastest ways to defeat yourself.
Did you weigh every day, or?
I don't remember, but I think like if you've been doing something for 2 weeks, like say you did paleo for 2 weeks and you're like, yes, I feel awesome. And like all of a sudden my skin's better and my poop's awesome and everything's great. Then you get on the scale and you're like up 2 pounds. You'd be like, fuck this, I'm done. Like, it's so silly, but like that is what we do.
Yeah.
And then the other thing would be that like, I actually didn't find it took a while to find a nutrition program, or just like not even a program, but just like a lifestyle that I actually liked to eat the food. Yeah. So like, I think that was part of the problem when I was doing like some of like when I was trying to do Weight Watchers and stuff. It's like, I didn't like a lot of the stuff I was eating. I didn't feel very good. So like, I looked forward all day to stupid things like Weight Watchers ice cream sandwiches, and they were like done in a second, you know, and they didn't even taste that good. So then you were like, this is my treat. Like, this sucks. Yeah. And so I didn't like it. And so I think both of those things would cause me to fall off. But I think, you know, what you were saying is now I honestly am not like some kind of like magically different person. And, you know, people ask that a lot, just on Instagram or whatever. They're like, you know, you before versus you now. It's just still me. Like, the thing is that I needed some help. I didn't know before, you know, that how effective coaching was. That's, you know, it was transformational for me because having accountability changed everything. Having somebody I had to go talk to, you know, that first trainer, changed everything. And I didn't know about that before. So just kind of, there were some systems that weren't in place for me. I wasn't a failure or like lazy Christy or like, you know, undisciplined Christy before. It was just like, I kept beating my head against the wall trying to do stuff that was never going to work. It wasn't set up for me to succeed. And so I feel like now what I do know is that like, I do know what those structures are, right? So like, that's really the big difference between now and then, is that when I feel like, say like if I had 2 weeks, like everything went to shit, like, you know, life got crazy, you know, whatever happens, and I eat total nonsense for 2 weeks and I feel terrible. The difference between now and then is that like, I just know what to do, right? Like, I would immediately get some accountability. You know, I'd call my coach and be like, hey, everything's messed up. Like, you know, I got to get right on track. And then I would know like, okay, for me, the first thing I do is I get rid of processed food, because for me, processed food is like a trigger, right? Like if I have like a bowl of cereal, I'm going to have 6 bowls of cereal. So usually for me, like getting back on track means like get rid of that nonsense. Like once you're in your routine, you know, you can have it back a little bit here and there. But when you're off the rails, It's got to go. And then the second thing that I do is I make myself do some kind of sweaty situation. Like, I truly believe that, like, our bodies know what to do once you start to exercise, because you don't want to exercise and then go eat, you know, a Boston cream donut. It doesn't feel good. You're not going to do it. So, you know, when I feel crappy, when everything is off the rails, I mean, it's the accountability piece. It's getting rid of the processed food. It's immediately sweating, because that makes me make better choices. And then this one's just like a trick of mine. So I don't know if this is like really helpful for people, but I change my clothes. I apply it on a daily basis if I need to. But like, if you are just like in your sweatpants, you know, and your big sweatpants and your Uggs and your like giant sweatshirt, like, your decision making is different than if you're like in, you know, a nice pair of workout clothes and you feel good and you got your like tennis shoes on and you're like ready to rock. Yeah. So if you feel shitty, then change your clothes first, and then you'll just start to act better.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's a good point. So, I mean, I think that what it sounds like to me is that, you know, and even though, like, I mean, I talk about like not having to go through a transformation myself. Mm-hmm. Me growing up my whole life was exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Played sports for so long, and I thank God never got injured. So it made anything happen. But yeah, I grew up on like frozen meals, McDonald's, Taco Bell. That's all I ever ate. Even like senior year of high school, I got a football scholarship, and I needed to put on a little bit more weight. And I ate 5 chicken burritos from Taco Bell every single day that summer. I thought that was bulking up, right? Like, but what I know now, over the last 10 years since I kind of started getting into the field, is I can control the way that my body feels. Mm-hmm. Back then, I used to get sick all the time. I used to feel like crap all the time. I always had stomach issues. I was taking Pepto-Bismol like every day. Like, it was terrible. But I know how crappy I felt back then, and I know how good I feel now. And I know that even if I fall off or whatever, like, I know how to get back on and get myself feeling good again. Now, you've probably seen this. I think a lot of people, they don't realize how good they can feel until they actually feel that way.
Yeah.
And so because people maybe try these crazy things that are unsustainable, and they don't actually get some consistency to allow their body to change and start to feel better, like, they don't know what that feeling is, and it's not motivating enough to get them back to that, because they don't even know how good they can feel.
No. And I'm actually an interesting example of that. So like, growing up, and again, same, you know, with this like mostly processed food, fast food diet, you know, pizza, you know, everything came out of a box or a wrapper. At age, I think I was 8, I started having like chest pains. And so they took me to the doctor, and they did like a full heart workup, and they were like, there's nothing wrong with your heart. So they did a full like stomach workup, and that like at age 8 or 9, they were like, you have severe acid reflux disease. So, you know, heartburn, but the like, you know, on a scale that was like needed to be medically dealt with. So at age 8 or 9, I was put on like the proton pump inhibitors, like the Asifex, the Nexium, the big guys. And for as long as I could remember, I was popping, you know, I would eat Tums in high school like it was nothing. I took Zantac 150s, and I was just like, well, you know, I have reflux. Like, it was just a thing that I thought I always had. You know, my heartburn was like on the scale of like bad to really bad. And the same thing with my allergies. So my allergies were always, as long as I could remember, pretty terrible. And I used to have eczema. I'd have like peeling blisters on my eyelids and on my inner arms. And I just had terrible eczema. And I was put on like steroid creams from my doctor. It was like really bad. Nothing touched it. I couldn't wash my face a lot of times because it was just so painful. And I just said, you know, I have eczema. I have reflux. And it was just what I accepted as my reality. It was all I had ever known. And I'll tell you, the best thing, about, you know, that the only time that I would ever say to do like a challenge, is if you've never ever done like a Whole30 or a paleo. Just one time, we all need to do, you know, a food quality month and just assess. Like, are there foods that are causing you problems? Because when I did that paleo challenge with my CrossFit gym and I was completely peer pressured into it, I didn't want to do it. Remember, at that point, I'd already lost my 40 pounds. I was like, I don't need to do this. Like, why do I need to do food quality? That is how I found out, like, that I had some food intolerances. And when I got rid of those, my reflux is gone. My eczema is gone. I haven't been on a medication for it in 5 years for either of those conditions. And I had been to all sorts of doctors. I'd even been to, they were so concerned about my reflux when I was getting out of the Navy that they ended up doing an upper endoscopy to check for esophageal cancer, because they were like, it's that bad. And it's gone now from changing my diet. Yeah. And like, it changed that to me opened my eyes, because then I was like, okay, well, the doctors couldn't solve this for me. Like, I needed to take ownership over what I was putting in my body and determine what was working for me and what wasn't. And then all of a sudden I felt better. And it was like, just like what you were saying before, when you brought this up, I would never have known, because I thought that, like, I'm just going to have reflux for the rest of my life. I'm going to have eczema for the rest of my life. And I had no concept that I could actually make myself feel better with food.
It's amazing, right? I mean, we look back to when, I don't remember, I always get this confused, Socrates or Einstein, when they said, may nutrition be thy medicine. Like, it's so true. I just posted a testimonial from a client this morning, and she was talking about the same exact thing. She had really bad eczema before we started working together, and now she doesn't have it at all anymore. And you hear stories like that all the time, like, I have clients that have Crohn's disease. I have clients that have, so many different things. And it all goes back to the food that you're putting in your body. Like, it matters. Like, it really matters, guys. Like, food quantity and food quality. Like, you can't get away with one of them. You need both.
And this is another note on that too, because if the story didn't, like, chronologically make sense, I had 10 knee surgeries before I started CrossFit and weightlifting. So my knee was what, doctors have said looks like an 80-year-old's knee. Like, I don't have an ACL. I have hardly any meniscus left, and my arthritis is terrible. So I started, doing, like, kind of like a fun athletic workout with a terrible knee. And it's still terrible. Like, it's still not great. But because of my food choices and because of, like, my exercise routine, like, most physical therapists tell me, like, and the doctors that I work with me, they're like, you shouldn't be able to do what you're doing. Like, you shouldn't be able to, function day to day. You really need a knee replacement right now based on these, like, x-rays. But I eat in a way that I avoid foods that cause inflammation. So, like, it's really important to me to make sure that I'm not eating stuff that's going to make my arthritis worse, or foods that cause chronic inflammation in my body. If you think about the fact that the eczema was like a skin layer visibility of what was, my body was not happy, like, that probably could have been impacting my joints as well. So if I didn't have my diet cleaned up, if I wasn't, like, careful about, making good choices on my food, I don't think I could do what I'm doing working out either, because my joints wouldn't work. My knee is never going to be, back to my 16-year-old girl knee. I have to take care of it.
You're how old?
I'm 35.
She's 35, guys, and y'all can go follow her on Instagram, and you're going to see her snatching and cleaning and doing all these things. But, like, after all of those knee surgeries, and now you're in a spot where, I mean, of course, like, after all that, you can't expect to be like 100%, but, like,
no.
you're still over here able to compete in Olympic lifting. You just did an Olympic lifting meet 3 weeks ago, and you have 2 kids and, like, all of these things. And it's like, you, over the last 4 or 5 years, have, like, literally changed your life, which is, like, so incredible. I mean, I think that, like, me growing up and, like, seeing my mom, who went through all of the same stuff, like, it was so frustrating because I could never help her, it was like, regardless of how much I knew, I just couldn't help her because I was her son and, like, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's so amazing to me, like, hearing stories like yours and others, and, like, just like like women empowerment is like, it's so incredible to me because not really by choice, but like our company works with like majority women. And for me, it's like, I never got to help my own mom. And now that I get to help all these women, like, it's amazing. And so for you, like, your story is so freaking inspiring. Like, we already know this. I've stood up and seen you cry a million times, and like, it's just amazing. So I think that like, it's like, one, keep telling it, and you know that, but continue to tell it, because like, hopefully everybody that hears the story on here and every other platform, like, it will be that motivation that changes their life, going forward. So
yeah, I just want people to know that like, I'm not like special or like extra motivated or like, really different than most of like my friends and my clients who are struggling with this. I'm just at a different place along the journey. So that's why I can look back and say like, hey, like, I can see clearly, like, these are the steps that you need to take. But it's literally, this is not unattainable. Like, you can have your body feel good. You can feel confident, like, in a bathing suit. You can do fun things, like, athletically, that you would never imagine that you could do. And it is fun. Like, you don't have to do CrossFit or weightlifting, but just being able to like hike to the top of the mountain and feel good, or like, chase your kids around and feel good. Like, those are really important and attainable goals. And so don't go back to that place where I thought that there was something wrong with me. Like, I can't do this because there's something wrong with me. I can't do this because I'm messed up. I can't do this because my hormones are messed up, or my knees messed up, or I'm a single mom, or I don't know how. Like, those are all reasons that you can't do it. But none of those are true. It's just like stupid crap you say to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a story. We are so good at forming stories in our own head.
Mm-hmm.
So good at taking a thought and turning it into this blown out of proportion, crazy negative story.
Yeah.
I think that you are in a place where obviously you're working with others and helping others, and you are in a place where you can talk about it. And I think that we have to, you get to a point in the journey where you feel comfortable with it. Like, I didn't talk about my past for like 8 years because I was so ashamed of it. I was so ashamed of being judged and all the negativity that came with it. But like, I realized that moment changed my whole entire life, and the way, like, what motivates me and everything. And so, but I didn't talk about it for like 8 years. So, I think that that's a really good point to bring up. Like, you're not any different. I'm no different than anybody else either. Like, anybody can do this. Like, you just have to, something has to happen to make you want to actually do it. Like, for me, I hit rock bottom. Like, I almost got my whole entire life taken away from me at 18 years old. That woke me the fuck up. Right.
Yeah.
So your story, it's maybe different, but like, it's a transformation, whether it's like, physically or mentally. I think there's so many components that kind of all are tied together in it. So thank you for taking the time and sharing yours.
I'm flattered that you asked. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, let's end things with, where are you on Instagram, Facebook, your website, all of that stuff? I know you have a podcast too, I think too, right?
Yeah, I do. So on Instagram, you can find me at Christy Mae Campbell. So it's ChristystYMae Campbell, CAMPBELL, like the soup. And my website's called Fit Me Nutrition. And if I was going to like promote one thing from that website, it's the Fit Me Basics program, which is basically just me teaching. It's an online course, so you can just do it at home. It works great, like if you have an existing coach or something, but it kind of like is sort of my tips and tricks for those daily routines. The big things that I changed about my day to day, from what I was doing before to what I do now. And on Facebook, I'm the same. It's Christy Mae Campbell. And so, yeah, anybody who has any questions or anything, feel free to reach out. Like, Justin's amazing. And so it's awesome to have such like a network of people that we can be supportive for our communities. And so happy to help however I can.
I love it. And what was the podcast?
Oh, it's called the Pivotal Focus Podcast.
focused podcast.
Yep, you can download it on iTunes or Downcast. But I interview people who have faced some sort of, significant life challenge, whether it's like breast cancer or, a traumatic, like maybe like life-changing thing or whatever. Basically, it's about people, regular people who have faced life's challenges and sort of come through it with like a very valuable perspective and inspirational, things to share. And so that's kind of what it's about.
Those are my favorite stories.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Awesome, girl. Well, thank you so much again. I'm going to sign off on here and then we'll
Okay.
out together.